You mentioned, though, about physicians who participate in the alternative payment models and that they could be exempt from this. Can you explain more about that to us?
Well, under the MACRA, only certain payment models count for purposes of the incentives. CMS calls those advanced alternative payment models. And to count for purposes of the incentives, these models have to meet 3 criteria that are set in law. The first is that the payment model has to require participants to use a certified EHR. The second is that the payment model has to tie some amount of payment to quality metrics that are comparable to those that are used in the MIPS quality reporting category. And then finally, and this is probably the most important determinant of whether a payment model will count as an advanced APM under the law, the model has to require that entities participating in the model, that is, that entity that is contracted with CMS, has to bear more than nominal risk for financial loss. And CMS is interpreting this to mean that under the payment model, for example, if the model incorporates a benchmark or a financial target, if the entity's Medicare spending under the model exceeds projections through the benchmark or target price, then the entity participating in the model must owe at least part of any losses back to Medicare. I will note that under these criteria, there are only a handful of current Medicare models that would meet these criteria, including Tracks 2 and Track 3 of the Medicare Shared Savings Program. Track 1 of the MSSP, which is a shared savings only model, would not qualify. Innovation Center models that would qualify are the Next Generation ACO, the two-sided risk track of the Oncology Care model, the Comprehensive ESRD model, and finally the Comprehensive Primary Care Plus model would qualify. The Comprehensive Care for Joint Replacement Bundled Payment Program would not qualify for 2017, but CMS has proposed an option to allow it to qualify going forward. Finally, CMS is exploring another ACO track, which it's calling the Track 1 Plus, which would be a model that would include downside risk, but to a more limited extent than the models currently available. This would allow another option for ACOs that are not yet ready to move on to a higher risk track. I'll also note that physicians that participate in these models have to meet certain thresholds for participation in order to qualify, and those thresholds are measured either by patient counts or by payment amounts through the payment model. CMS plans to assess this at the level of the actual entity that's participating in the model and that's contracted with the APM. So what CMS plans to do is to aggregate participation among all clinicians participating in the model through what's known as the APM entity and look if, on aggregate, the clinicians participating in the model meet those thresholds. Now, I will note that the thresholds are fairly aggressive. For example, when looking at payment amounts, the threshold starts out at 25% of Medicare payments going through the alternative payment model in 2019 and 2020. In 2021, that amount goes up to 50% for 2021 and 2022. And in 2023 and beyond, that goes up to 75% of payments going through alternative payment models. So again, those are fairly aggressive targets for participation. And I'll note that in 2019 and 2020, only Medicare fee-for-service alternative payment models will count. Starting in 2021, CMS can look across all payment models, so that will also include any arrangements through Medicare Advantage plans, but also through Medicaid and private payers.